privilege of introducing Haile Johnston. He's going to really, I stand up here and crow, but he's actually going to deliver the goods. So Haile Johnston is a Philadelphia-based social entrepreneur who works to improve the vitality of rural and urban communities through food system reform and policy change. As a father of three, really? Father of three. Haile actively pursues his core purpose to repair the earth for our children and prepare our children for the earth. Along with his wife, Tatiana, he is the co-director and a founder of Common Market Philadelphia, a really fantastic program, a nonprofit distribution enterprise that connects communities in the Mid-Atlantic region to sustainable locally grown farmland. The two have also teamed up to found the East Park Revitalization Alliance in their community of Strawberry Mansion, where they have resided for 11 years. Haile is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, where he is concentrated in entrepreneurial management and is proud to have recently served as a food and community fellow with the Institute of Agriculture and Trade Policy. And I will also say that I've had the privilege of getting to know Haile over the last several months, working on some common projects, and he is a fantastic guy, an incredible leader, and a really smart guy. And I would say he's the future of food system growth in this country. So welcome, Haile Johnston.
Well, good morning, Savannah. Good morning, Savannah. Good morning. Okay, so this is Healthy Savannah. I've read a bunch of studies recently that say sitting is not healthy, right? And I think y'all have been sitting for maybe a little too long, so why don't we all stand up? Yeah. Stretch a little bit, right? I want you to look at your neighbor and smile, because that just feels good. And after hearing Joel this morning recount many of the achievements that you've made over the last year, which have been nothing short of remarkable, I want you to give yourselves a round of applause. So you're welcome to remain standing or sit if you like. It's up to you. I want to first and foremost thank Cynthia Hayes from Saffron for bringing me here to Savannah and introducing me to some of the local farmers, some of the growers, some of the real heroes in this region who are on the front edge of food system reform. So thank you, Cynthia. And also to Mr. Hayes, who has graciously driven us around the countryside, enabling a lot of this activity. So hats off to you, sir, as well. While we were spending time planning my coming to Savannah, one of the first questions I asked was, what is happening locally here? What do the efforts look like to plan for food systems reform? And lo and behold, we heard that Ms. Whitney was doing research on what it would mean to bring a food hub to Savannah. And I said, well, you're bringing me in from far away to talk about the work I do. We need to give her an opportunity to share as well. So thank you, Whitney, for sharing. And planning, from my perspective, is really the first step that any region needs to take before embarking on this kind of change. So I think you're on your way, and thank you very much. I also would like to thank Mark, because Mark Whitney, who spoke before me, has been an absolute inspiration to me in my work, and I was perplexed that I be given the opportunity to speak last, because his career is far more outstanding than mine. Mine is burgeoning. But I think what I have the opportunity to do for each and every one of you is share some of the practical applications of how our community in Philadelphia has come together to address some of the challenges that we face by creating food system reform and connecting people to better food. So I was really encouraged by both the words shared by Whitney earlier and by the words of Mark, and I hope to reinforce some of their points by sharing the story of Common Market in Philadelphia and the work that we've done there. I also, before I start, I'm going to tell you a little story as well. While you see these pictures in the background of our organization and our partners and our work, I do also want to thank the good mayor. I walked in here this morning and I sat in the mayor's chair, and she was so gracious with me. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the city of Savannah for hosting me. I especially want to thank you for your weather, okay? I come from Philadelphia, which is known as the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, and I think we got that name because of our weather, because of how cold it's been over the last few months. We got to have something to do in the wintertime, so I got off the plane in Jacksonville a couple days ago and thought I'd fallen asleep on the plane, woke up, I was a little disoriented, I got off the plane, I thought I was in Jamaica, it was so warm. It felt so good to me. I don't know if you've heard about the polar vortex, but polar vortex has put a whooping on us this year. So let me get back to Common Market though, right? So about 12 years ago, my wife and I moved to our community of Strawberry Mansion in Philadelphia. And I want to paint a little picture for you of Strawberry Mansion so you understand where I'm coming from and really what the inspiration for the Common Market is and was and how we came to be. So Strawberry Mansion in the city of Philadelphia is a beautiful neighborhood. We sit adjacent to one of the largest inner city parks in the world. So when I walk out of my door, I literally walk into 1,200 acres of parkland. Beautiful historic architecture that predates some of the architecture here. And just a gorgeous community. But with some of the greatest health disparities and diet-related disease challenges of any community in the nation. Common Market is, I keep calling my neighborhood Common Market. I spend so much time there, I feel like it's home. Strawberry Mansion has one of the highest percentages of African Americans of any community in the city of Philadelphia. We have 98% of our elementary school catchment is African American. We also happen to be one of the lowest income communities in the city of Philadelphia. And the mayor's nodding her head because I know she knows Councilwoman Marion Tasco in Philadelphia and other leaders of Philadelphia and understands firsthand some of our challenges. And we also have some of the highest incidents of violent crime in the city, and often the highest murder rate. My wife and I chose to live in Strawberry Mansion because all of the beauty and all of the history of Strawberry Mansion, all of the opportunity that we see, and because of access to the park. And we wanted to live in a place where, one, we could afford to live and where we could, and at the time we didn't have children, but in a neighborhood where we wanted to raise our children and create a better future for not just our own children, but for other children in our community. So what we did when we first moved there is we started, meeting our neighbors and learning about some of the challenges and learning about some of the opportunities that we could create to really improve our own quality of life. And really for us, it was about how do we make Strawberry Mansion a place where people who live there want to stay, make it a neighborhood where also other people might want to come and live as well. There was a lot of vacant land that's been dumped upon, where a lot of illegal activity happened. And the first thing we said is, well, maybe there's a way we can work with youth in our community to clean up these vacant lots and to do something productive in this space. So we got to gardening and planting things, and I'm not trained in agriculture at all, but what we found is if you put some seeds in the ground and you engage kids, and periodically you remember to water it, something's going to grow, right? And so we, all of a sudden, flowers sprouting up and vegetables and people coming out of their houses and, trying to see what's going on there. And, we launched, as Mark mentioned, we launched this organization, East Park Revitalization Alliance, with our community, and really oriented toward improving the quality of life and building healthy community in Strawberry Mansion, engaging youth around growing food, cooking food, physical activity, built environment challenges, and using food as a metaphor for healthy decision making. And so, Tatiana and I have been running East Park Revitalization Alliance. I got Common Market on the brain for about 5 years, and having great success, engaging hundreds of kids in our neighborhood in positive activity, engaging their parents also in healthy food access. And we had to start asking ourselves some really hard questions. While we absolutely believed that the work that we were doing was critically important to our community, how long would it take for that work to begin to impact health outcomes in our community? How long would that work actually impact, how long would it take to impact health disparity? How long would it take for us to change the culture of consumption in our community? And how could we as a community take greater ownership in how food comes to our community, take greater sovereignty over how we access food? So again, it was some soul searching for us. We were really thinking about how could we as a community have greater impact on our own health, and how could we expedite the rate of change? And we really started thinking about the fact that most of the health disparity that existed in our community had everything to do with food access, the food that was being brought into our community, and we largely had no power and no decision-making capacity over what kind of food came, the kinds of establishments it was sold out of, and how we got our food in the institutions that serve our community. So there's a bit of sometimes I feel like it's like a biblical element to this story as well. So around that time, we began, we were soul searching, we were looking for answers, we were looking for ways to be more impactful, we were looking for inspiration and change. And Tatiana had a friend from Germany. So this man came from across the seas. And, he wanted to come and study the Amish and Mennonite farmers in our region. And he was perplexed by how they were using such simple technology and having such tremendous yields in their farmland, using very, very simple, generations, if not eons old farming techniques, and having tremendous production in our community, in our region. Now, mind you, Philadelphia is, I would say, very similar to here in that you don't have to travel very far before you start to hit the dirt, as we say, before you find the farmland and you can see active agriculture. But for some reason, that food that is being grown only about an hour away from our community was not finding its way to our neighborhood. Now, mind you, we're talking about 45 minutes in one direction, an hour and a half in another direction. Maybe 2 hours in another direction, but tremendous amounts of food being grown in our region, but somehow not connecting to the communities that were suffering from a lack of access to food. And our food system, the people and often the for-profit entities that control how we access food had somehow decided that Strawberry Mansion and other communities like Strawberry Mansion were no longer worth serving. At the same time, they had decided that small family farms in our region were also no longer worth serving, and that there was not value in connecting the needs of these two communities. So this gentleman, Martin, from Germany, comes and he brings us out to the farmland, and in our region we have farm auctions, and the farm auctions were set up to help farmers transition away from tobacco and into growing produce that could be, and as a mechanism for them to get this food to market. So we go to the auction one day with Martine, and our minds were blown. All this amazing food all around us, only an hour and a half from our house. And we got caught up in the energy, right? If any of you have been to the auction, auctioneer starts talking fast, he's moving and the energy starts flowing, and I said, I got to get me a paddle, and I got to try this out. And so I got a paddle, I started bidding on things, and it was the fall and they were selling apples. And lo and behold, I was the top bidder, right? I was exuberant. because I had never seen so much good food in one place. And when it was all said and done, I wasn't sure what I had bought, but I knew I got something. And I walked over. The man showed me the cart of apples I had bought, and I bought I think it was about 12 bushels of apples. And I didn't know what I had paid for them, but I had one, which was the important part. And I said, well, how much did all this cost? He said, 12 bushels of apples. It was about, I'm going to round it up, but it was about $4.50 a bushel that I had paid for these apples, which was ridiculous because if you know anything about farming, a box costs about $1.50, and the farmer's labor probably cost at least that, and his time coming to auction, or her time coming to auction probably cost at least that. So for the farmer, this was a break-even, if at best, break-even affair. But for us, it was enlightening and eye-opening in a lot of ways. We said on one side, this is crazy because farmers are not being paid a fair wage for the food that they're growing. The most amazing, delicious, healthful, sustainably grown apple that I had ever tasted. And now on the other side, we were buying cases of apples wholesale to feed to the kids in our programs. We were spending $25 an hour and a half away in Philadelphia buying the same apples, maybe, not knowing where they were coming from, but spending $25 for a case. And I said, this is madness. Farmers aren't getting paid what they deserve here on one side. Communities aren't getting the product that they should, and when they are, it's overpriced, or it's low quality, or it's been processed, all the nutrients have been processed out of it. Is there a possibility that we could create an organization that connects the interests of these two communities in a fair and transparent way? And that really was the epiphany moment for us in the launch of Common Market. Was there an opportunity to bypass all of the stewards that had control over the fate of the farms on one side and the fate of communities on the other in a way that could be mutually beneficial, in a way that really focused benefit on what I call the two anchors of the value chain, producers on one side and consumers on the other. Now, here's where policy comes in, which I think is critically important to this story today and to the role that each of you play in advancing a healthy future for the city of Savannah. Around that time, there was a bond issue called the First Industries program in Pennsylvania. And this was a bond issue that created planning grants for food projects and for tourism, which in the city of Savannah, I hear are two big industries. So again, not dissimilar to Pennsylvania, but these were our two original industries on some level and also our two largest industries in the state of Pennsylvania. And this created an opportunity for us to apply for a planning grant, which enabled us to dig deeper and to engage communities in a more meaningful way in planning our collective future together, in planning a reformed food system on some level, or at least a food system intervention that could connect communities, again, in a fair and transparent way. And through that process of engaging farmers in understanding their needs and engaging communities in different market segments and understanding their needs, the plan for Common Market was born. Just want to see which pictures y'all are seeing. I was fairly deliberate in choosing these photos I want to share because, that's my homie, the goat. One, to demonstrate a degree of scale that is necessary to efficiently connect farmers and communities. And by efficiently, I mean operating at an appropriate scale so that food can be accessible and affordable within communities, and at the same time, still having the ability to return more of that food dollar to the family farmer in your region. So Common Market, when we began planning, or as a result of our planning, and actually I will say as a result of running a very small community-based nonprofit for about 5 years, we said we had to figure out an intervention that could be self-sustaining on some level in time. We didn't want to be in a position where we had to go to the grant maker every year and rely on the on the goodwill of the grant community to support our initiative. We wanted to find a way that we could actually engage in enterprise and create economic opportunity for the communities that we were serving in a self-sustaining way. And again, as Mark mentioned, as Whitney mentioned, as we've heard, I think over and over again, that there needs to be an opportunity to potentially subsidize this kind of activity and to get this activity off of the ground, but finding the ways that we can reach appropriate scale in order to create self-sustaining community interventions. So for us, having had this, again, community-based nonprofit experience, also having a degree of formal business training. My wife also actually went to, she got her MBA from the Wharton School, so she was saying that we need to find a way for this to work on its own. We started thinking about what it would mean to scale and how we could do that. And what we figured was that it couldn't just be directly engaging our own community. And that this problem, this challenge, was so much larger than our community alone. This was a challenge that so many communities faced. And that we needed to effectively engage the interests of diverse communities around our region in order to come up with this appropriately scaled intervention. So for us, it wasn't just the needs of this lowest income community, this brown community that's struggling from health disparities, but it was also the needs of the middle income communities when you look at their health outcomes weren't altogether different. It was also the needs of some of our more affluent communities that have been excited about local food, and some of the parents who have been pushing their institutions to source local food, and those institutions saying, hey, we'd love to, but nobody sells this stuff, or we can't get it affordably, or we don't know where to go to get it safely, which is critically important. So our strategy for launching Common Market at appropriate scale was first to engage the institutions of our region. And so I'd like to ask a question is, how many folks in this audience represent a school, a hospital, a university, elder care facility, a market? Can you raise your hand tall? Okay, so a good number of them. So for us, appropriate scale was looking at what the procurement possibilities existed within institutional food service in our region, and how could we capture even a small percentage of institutional food service procurement, both as a means for selling meaningful volumes of food so that we're engaging farmers in appropriate ways, and also providing meaningful volumes of food, and not just any food, but sustainably grown food, locally sourced food, food that was grown by small and medium-sized family farmers in our region, getting that kind of higher quality food to the people who needed it the most in our region. So again, trying to use the procurement dollar of institutional food service as a mechanism of both creating this self-sustaining intervention and at the same time impacting the communities, again, these two anchors of the value chain in the most meaningful way. So I've told you a little bit of the why and a little bit of the how. So I'll share just briefly a little bit of the what. And then I'm going to be excited to invite our co-presenters back up, and hopefully we can answer some direct questions. So what we do is this. And you know, it's funny because I'm going to say, people sometimes talk about Common Market as an innovation. I say, we're not an innovation. We're just going back to the way things used to be, right? We're just returning back to the simple mechanism of connecting communities with food, right? It's like one of the most basic things you can imagine. But what we do is this, and again, these pictures are instructive because infrastructure is a big part of it. And Whitney talked about infrastructure and the need for infrastructure to play this role in connecting communities. It is not safe nor is it efficient for farmers to be driving their food directly to the institution's dock in their pickup trucks. It is not efficient for the institution to be doing direct procurement from 100 or 50 different farmers. And what you need is this distribution infrastructure in the middle, and middle people get a bad name sometimes, but when the middle people are fair and transparent, they provide an incredibly valuable service. So what we do is we work with about 80 family farms in the Philadelphia region. We use a similar definition to the Forsyth Farmers Market, where we talk about most of our food coming from within 200 miles. So 80 family farms from within 200 miles, and we aggregate their food. Now, we sell everything from all the produce that you can imagine that's grown in our region to protein. So we do a lot of turkey and ground beef and chicken. We do a lot of dairy products, and that's why my friend the goat is in the picture. We sell a lot of goat cheese and a lot of yogurt. And so we aggregate this food at our warehouse in Philadelphia. And we work with our institutional food service partners to really, I'm going to say, share what the farmers have available and promote their food and maintain the transparency of who grew the food, where it was grown, its production values, so whether it was organic, chemical-free, integrated pest management, and other progressive sustainable growing practices, so that when the institutional food service buyer is looking at our list, they know exactly where the food is coming from, and they can convey that directly to the students or hospital patients or other folks they're serving. So then these institutions, they order the food from us, we communicate it back to the farmer, it is literally picked to order, and then we, again, aggregate and distribute. So we play this connecting role, this promotional role, between the farmer on one side and the institutional food service vendor on the other. One of the things that I think is really exciting about I'm going to say, the exuberance around food hubs nationally is that, number one, they take all kinds of different shapes and sizes. Not all food hubs need to look like Common Market nor replicate the work that Common Market is doing, but there is the appropriate model that folks can pursue for their region. And it is through planning, it is through engagement of communities that you find what that intervention looks like for the city of Savannah. It's through the process of developing advocacy organizations like Healthy Savannah and food policy councils that you begin to identify the needs of communities and connect them to this vision so that they are invested in this idea and they have real ownership over the outcomes. And it's by working with organizations like SAFON, who is doing farmer organization, farmer capacity building, and helping farmers build their ability to meet the needs of the market, that you begin to create these bridges. So I say all this to say, and I'm again excited to share our story in hopes that we can, I think the sign says in the middle, one of the 3 points is inspire. I'm hoping to inspire the city of Savannah through our story. And mind you, Common Market is only 6.5 years old. And in the last 6.5 years, we have grown to, this year we'll move about $3 million of local food to about 250 regional institutions. 80 of those institutions are schools, about 15 of them are hospitals, and we're connecting the communities and the people who need food the most in our region to the highest quality food that you can imagine. Mark brought up an incredibly important point, and I think I meant to mention this earlier. When we started Common Market, you could only find local food in farmers markets, in white tablecloth restaurants, and in CSAs. And a big part of our objective was to democratize access to good food, because all people of all communities deserve to be able to access good, sustainable local food. So with that, I really want to again thank you all for inviting me today to share our story. It's but one story of food system success and reform, and I think it is absolutely possible for the city of Savannah to create its own story moving forward, and it begins with the plan. So again, thank you.